Hello, welcome to the Business Lounge. Now, it is said few of us are natural communicators, and those who are good at talking, well, many of them don't really like it anyway. So imagine you have a product that you want to sell, a product that nobody really knows too much about, and the only thing standing in your way is that good old-fashioned thing called money. How do you go about getting it? Well, of course, you can write to potential investors. You can go and have countless cups of coffee with people who've got a few quid to spend. But then, of course, there's The Dragon's Den, a fantastically popular programme on the BBC and a programme which has made, and indeed not made, so many hundreds of people. Well, my guest with me now is Alistair Heelas from JBL Leisure, a man who has pitted his wits against the might of the Dragons, and thank goodness you've lived to tell the story. Albeit the outcome was, as far as they were concerned, a negative. I mean, Snow Globe, which is what you went to talk to them about, has become fantastically successful. But I want to talk to you about your experience with the Dragons. What first got you wanting to go on there?
Well, obviously, the first thing is that I've been exposed to the television programme myself. So as a national viewer, I can see that it's an extremely popular programme and has created more and more interest because more and more people are turning to be entrepreneurs. So that was my first real interest in the programme. Second was timing, in the fact that the programme's come along in a time when I've been developing a product. So in terms of formulating a business plan separately from what we already had, we actually decided, the company, that we would go to get some exposure in its first instance with the Dragon's Den. However, they sort of approached us and we filled the forms in, we went through the procedures of being vetted and due diligence, etc., and we were passed to go on the show. However, at that particular time, they didn't say to us you would be on the show. They said you will spend 8 weeks, very hard work, taking a lot of your time up, 3 or 4 telephone books worth of paperwork later, and you may get airtime. You may not. So you have to accept that first. So the first thing you need to say is this worth time out of my business time to do this? Well, in our case, I felt it was a very good way of exposing us, so it was worth the time. So we went through the procedure of filming, which can often be negative when you're there, because it's like going to the dentist. You expect everything to go nice and you're told something else is going to happen and it's not done like this. You could come away from the first session feeling quite disappointed, or that you're not the Hollywood actor that you thought you were, and you're shaking, and it's quite intimidating being directed if you're not used to being on stage. In my case, I'm a reasonably confident person, so I didn't have too much trouble with that. However, I did have to do some homework on how to present myself, how to stand, where to look, who to speak to, when to be spoken to, and to come up with what is a lot of information in what the BBC, for example, give you is about 1.5 minutes of time. So we did rehearsals 6 or 7 times, we got it down to exactly what we wanted, and then I got a call to say, great, you're going on the show. And then I got another call to say, well, you'll actually be going to the studios in Pinewood. You will wait in the waiting room, but we still can't guarantee you'll actually get airtime. So even at that stage, when you've passed everything else, you still don't know that you're going to be actually on the show. And then you meet, of course, other entrepreneurs. You listen to their ideas, it's quite interesting, and they ask you why you're there. And the main reason we were there is marketing. We wanted to get exposure. It wasn't a free way as such, because we had to pay for the 8 weeks of time it cost, backwards and forwards, your own personal time, but it was exposure on national television, potentially for anywhere between 1.5 and 10 minutes, and also the potential to get some financial benefit from one or more of the Dragons.
Risky though, wasn't it? Because I mean, you could, yes, you get all this massive TV exposure, I suppose global TV exposure, because it does go around the world, but you ran the risk of them utterly ridiculing you and actually therefore influencing the thoughts and the minds of the viewers.
Yes, and to a degree they did sort of, in the period I was on there, they did ridicule me. However, it was in a way that was done without any malice. They were actually so interested in the Globe that, I mean, I spent a lot longer in front of the Dragons than actually was exposed on television, because as everybody knows, TV edit things down because of time. So I learnt a lot while I was with the Dragons, very good and valuable information, so I gained that information for nothing off very far experienced entrepreneurs who have done very well. And I also got my 1.5 minutes on national television, which isn't just national here in the UK, I mean, it's national in other countries as well. So, we were exposed. One of the reasons that I wasn't too concerned about the risk of embarrassment, let's say, is that I above many people that go on the Dragon's Den, inverted commas, did have a valid patent when I went on there. So when I was asked the question, have you patented it? Yes.
Yeah, and here it is.
Is it trading? Yes. Is it making money? Yes. Can you prove it? Yes. So I was able to say that we have a business, which one of the Dragons recognised and said, you know, you don't really need us, you're doing quite well, and you will make money from this project.
Because you were asking for quite a significant amount of money.
I'd asked for a lot of money because I felt that I needed the Dragons' help in America, not in the UK. So I'd asked for money to help us marketing and advertising in the US. The Dragons felt that I was asking for too much, based on the fact that in their experience I didn't need that much money to market. So when it came down to me explaining how I was going to spend that money in America, the Dragons felt I'd over-budgeted. But that's just their opinion, which they're entitled to. My research had told me it was going to cost a lot, potentially a lot more. So I fixed a ceiling on how much money, and I knew then that the risk of getting investment was less, because of the more money you ask for, the less chance you've got of getting an investment. Certainly off one Dragon, and often off two, in my experience of, and I did study the television programme for some time as well. But we did get our risk balance, because we did get our exposure. We wanted, you know, part of the plan to go on the Dragon's Den was marketing exposure for the company, for the product. We did put the Dragons in it. It was on national television. It looked fantastic, and the phone never stopped ringing. So
no, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. Albeit you didn't get the money, you got the exposure, you got the phone calls.
We got the phone calls. The Dragon's Den did help us in terms of marketing from that moment on, and has done since, purely based on the fact that it is a brand. Dragon's Den is a brand name, and you know, it ticks every box for entrepreneurs. They're not all, there's less that are successful than more that are, and that's the reason why they're there, to filter out what's good. Potentially some will slip through the net and guys make a success, and you know, I'm one of them, because although we slip through the net in terms of getting investment, we're successful with our product. So, and many other people that have been on the Den are quite similar. Many other people get investment on the Den and don't go on to actually finish the process, and either the Dragons pull out, or they decide that they can now do it on their own and they don't want to. But they've still got the exposure of national television, which, you know, is a huge help towards anybody marketing any product or offering a service, or even introducing that as that person as a person to the public eye. You know. Have
you been in touch with them any of the Dragons since? Have you heard from any of them since?
I haven't been in touch with any of the Dragons. I've been back in touch with the BBC because they asked me to let them know how I was getting on. So over the Christmas period, we just said to them, you know, our sales have increased. So because the BBC actually said that they may do certain programmes where they may like people that have been follow-ups to come back. And one of the points that I made, which I think is probably where I could probably have some experience and help, is the fact that when we finished Dragon's Den and we did the post-interview, they asked me, what have you learned from this programme? Simple question. My answer to that was, in front of the camera, I'd learned a better way to present myself, and I'd learnt so much on the show and during the filming process that it would do me well to set up a business separately, just to teach people how to present themselves to something like, or other ideas similar, the Dragon's Den TV show, a degree in a business course, or explains about finances, but how to come across correctly and how to prepare yourself and make sure that you've got everything packaged up just right in that short space of time. Because that is what you run out of on television, is time, and it's getting your message across every point that they want to hear, not what you want to hear. And often those two cross, and that's where people have got great ideas, great inspiration, great drive, but they just can't get their message across or present it to potential investors, be it Dragons or in a private company in an office in London or anywhere else, you know. So I think that was the most valuable lesson I learned, and one that anybody looking to get on TV or market or present their products or go to an investor, and that can be the bank or, you know, whoever, they need to make sure that they've got everything in a very concise format and everything's correct, so that there's less questions.
Would you advise anybody with a decent product, a decent idea, to go on Dragons, or to try and get on Dragons Den, or a programme like it?
Yeah, I would advise anybody that thinks that they have a product that they believe in and think they can sell, because there's many other people in a room could have an opinion say you won't sell that. you know, 10 months down the line, you've sold 200,000 in the world. So it doesn't mean to say that their opinion was right, because it was wrong. And that has happened, you know, on the Dragon's Den and other shows similar, probably in other countries, and certainly in private business, you know. So I would definitely say, yeah, if you've got a good idea, you've got a good product, you believe in it yourself, you believe in it yourself, do everything you can to get maximum exposure, but prepare yourself well for that. Don't go into it not prepared, because if you've got a great product and you go in ill prepared, people won't believe in you. And I think the first thing that happens with the Dragons is they've got to buy into you and believe in you, that you are somebody potentially as a person that are worth investing in, and then they'll go on to talking about your product, because you can have the best product in the world, and if people don't believe in you, banks or investors or the Dragons, then they won't invest in you.
So if you had some business advice, a piece of business advice that you could give someone, what would it be?
The main thing is to be yourself, is to relax and be yourself, and not to try and assume, to try and be better than you are. Because more often than not, all that anybody wants, an investor, whether it be a partner, whether it be somebody looking at your product, discussing your product, they just want to deal with somebody that actually is a real person, that is themselves. Because the moment you try and aspire to be somebody else, you are eventually going to drop back down to being yourself, and that's when you sort of can get found out. So if just be yourself, good planning and preparation, and always fight very hard your corner to get your point over, or to get your product over, or to get yourself over.
Good to see you, Alistair. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alistair Heelas.